from the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Again on the road, and welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. We've got a packed show for all of y'all this morning. Really, like a lot going on in the world of vulnerabilities, a lot of stuff happening for practitioners on the basis and at the core of our infrastructure and technology that we're going to be talking about on this morning's show. So don't go anywhere. If you haven't checked out our Substack, please make sure to do so. jamesazar.substack.com. You'll find all the latest and greatest there, as well as exclusive content that's only available there. You can also subscribe and follow the show on your favorite podcast listening platform, as well as on your favorite social media platform, all except the evil TikTok, where we do not put any content on TikTok. So find us all there but TikTok. So without further ado, join me for a coffee cup cheers this morning. As a tradition of the show, I've got my Celsius as I'm on the road, and espressos are hard to come by. Yeah, there's a Starbucks in the lobby, but have you ever had like a pure espresso from Starbucks? It sucks. It's the worst thing on the planet. There's very little that's getting a Starbucks espresso is like getting a McDonald's hamburger and considering it a decent one. Yeah, it fills you up when you're driving, but that's it. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. All right. Without further ado, let's go ahead and kick off this morning's program with MarineMax filing an updated report to regulators at the SEC on Monday of this week, warning that customer and employee information was stolen during the incident. The Reseda ransomware group has taken credit for the attack that started on March 21st. The company initially told the SEC about a security incident on March 10th, but provided few details on what was behind the incident or what was accessed. In that filing, the company claimed it does not maintain sensitive data in the environment impacted by the incident. However, they did have to revise that assessment as the investigation is ongoing. And that's one of the things as you're going through a ransomware attack is the information is ongoing. And that's why the SEC reporting, the CISA reporting, it's got to be really clear at the very beginning. What do you know within 72 hours? What do you know within 96 hours? What do you know within the first week? You don't know much. You're really waiting for forensics to come through. You're coordinating. You're looking at business continuity. You don't know until you get further into the investigation, and then you understand the scale of the compromise. The company intends to provide appropriate notifications to potentially affected parties and to regulatory agencies as required by federal and state law. So there's that. MarineMax reported its highest revenue ever in 2023, reaching a revenue of $2.39 billion. These guys continue to draw headlines, the Reseda ransomware gang, due to some law enforcement scrutiny, as well as some of their previous attacks in Kuwait, Portugal, the Dominican Republic, as well as the British libraries and one of the largest hospital networks in the U.S. and Children's Hospital. So all in all, these guys are there. So that's it for our breach news. Now let's go ahead and start to focus on really what's happening in the world of practitioners in our infrastructure. This one high severity cross-site scripting vulnerability within the WordPress membership plugin would allow actors to inject arbitrary scripts into their web pages, according to an advisory by security firm Defiant. CVE 2024-1852 is a result of an insufficient input sanitization and output escaping, allowing an attacker to create accounts that have a malicious script stored as the value of the user's IP address. An attacker could then use that user registration functionality to fill and submit a registration form, intercept the registration request using a proxy, and modify it to contain an X-forwarded for header with a malicious payload enclosed in the script tags, according to the Defiant WordFence research team. The issue is that if an X-forwarded for header is present in the request, the plugin uses its value to store the IP address of any user relying on that registration form. So there are patches for this. The version is 3.4.9.3 is the one with that, and then there's a partial fix 3.4.9.2 if that one does not work. This has over 60,000 active installations in WordPress. Google on Monday announced patches for 28 vulnerabilities in Android and 25 bugs in the Pixel devices, including 2 issues that are being exploited in the wild. The exploited flaws are CVE 2024-29745 and 29748 that impact Pixel's bootloader and firmware, according to the advisory by Google. Google's often linked these types of vulnerabilities to spyware vendors. A total of 24 vulnerabilities leading to elevation of privileges and information disclosure were also addressed in various Pixel components, and another was resolved in a Qualcomm component. All in all, there's that. On the Android side of the house, the most severe of the vulnerabilities was CVE 2024-23704. It's an EOP defect in the system component that affects Android 13 and Android 14. That's also been patched. You want to make sure to apply those patches as soon as humanly possible. A China-linked threat actor known as EarthFrybug is using a new malware tool to bypass mechanisms organization may have been put in place to monitor their Windows API for malicious activity. The malware, where researchers at Trend Micro discovered and named Unapimone or API mode, works by disabling hooks in the Windows API for inspecting and analyzing API-related processes for security issues. The goal is to prevent any process that the malware spawns from being detected or inspected by antivirus tools, sandboxing products, or other threat detection mechanism. Any good API monitoring tool is going to monitor malicious activity, meaning what's happening in the API. What does that header information look like? What's that body information look like? If you've got the right tool in your environment and you're monitoring your APIs effectively, which you should be doing. If you're not doing it now, then you definitely need to be doing it. APIs are often abused for a multitude of reasons, and not only stealing data, interrupting business, causing havoc, a whole bunch of stuff. So if you're not getting the right monitoring in place, you definitely need that. EarthFrybug is a subset of APT41, also known as Wicked Panda. The group is known for using a collection of custom tools and so-called living off-the-land binaries that manipulate legitimate systems binaries like PowerShells or Windows management instrumentation. APT itself has been around since 2012. These guys are just in their teenage years. They have been mostly behind espionage campaigns, supply chain attacks, and financially motivated cybercrime. Cybereason a few years ago identified the threat actor as stealing large volumes of trade secrets and intellectual property from companies in the US and Asia for years. This specific attack chain, though, they're using a multi-stage approach to delivering the malware on targeted systems. They inject malicious code of unknown origin into a VM stools.exe, a process associated with a set of utilities for facilitating communications between a virtual guest machine and the underlying host machine. The malicious code creates a scheduled task on the host machine to run a batch script on the host file. That file task is to collect a range of system information, initiate a second scheduled task to run a cc.bat file on the infected host. The second batch scripts leverages Sessions env, a Windows service for managing remote desktop services, to sideload a malicious dynamic link library, or also known as DLL, on the infected host. And that's the part. Then the malicious DLL will drop the Unapimone on the Windows services for defense evasion purposes, and also a command.exe process that quietly executes commands. In it itself, it's a DLL malware written in C++ and is neither packed nor obfuscated. It's not encrypted, save for a single string, according to Trend Micro. What makes it peculiar is its defense evasion techniques of unhooking API so that the malware's malicious processes remain invisible to threat detection tools. So, again, a very interesting move there by the Chinese. The infamous Heartbleed bug turned 10 years old a few days ago. And we may have another one, courtesy of quantum computing, and this one could be much worse. The heartbeat blood plug, as many of you remember, created a lot of havoc 10 years ago. It was published with the CVE identifier 2014-0160 on April 7th, but April 1st is widely recognized as its anniversary date for a multitude of reasons. Now we're seeing something similar coming to QuantumBleed, according to Kevin Bosak, Chief Innovation Officer at Venfi, comparing Heartbleed of 10 years ago to the future quantum tobacco, calling it QuantumBleed with originality of biting off the name with quantum. But for QuantumBleed, that would be just the first stage. In the first post-quantum world, we would have to do that multiple times. And more often than we might think, Google may have reduced acceptable lifespan of a certificate to 398 days in March of last year, but it proposed reducing it down to 90 in order to combat all of that. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff around quantum computing, RSA keys, the whole thing about it. I mean, look, quantum's coming up. The question is, what's going to be the threat to existing certificates, logs, and what's the internet going to look like with quantum computing? What's the use cases? There's a whole bunch of things around quantum adoption that still are a bit unclear. Is our current encryption and certificate process flawed? Absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt about it. Is it disaster? Potentially in 3 to 4 years. Is it a priority? And that's the thing about something like this. Is it a priority? And that remains to be seen. That remains to be seen. Should it be a priority in specific industries? Yes, in others, it not so much. But I'll just leave it there as well. Attackers are once again abusing Google Ads to target people with info-stealing malware, this time an ad tracking feature to lure corporate users with fake ads for collaborative groupware like Slack and Notion. Researchers from the OnLab Security Intelligence Center discovered a malicious campaign that uses a statistical feature to embed URLs that distribute malware, including the Rhodomontade stealer that revealed in a blog post published this week. The feature lets advertisers insert external analytic website addresses in the ads to collect and use their visitor access related data to calculate ad traffic. However, instead of inserting a URL for external statistic sites, attackers are abusing the feature to enter sites for distributing malicious code. According to the researchers, ads related to the campaign have already been deleted, but when they were active, clicking on the banner would take the unsuspecting user to an address that would trick them into downloading a malicious file. Again, browser security, very, very important. The FCC, also known as the Federal Communications Commission, saying it's taken action to address significant weaknesses in the telecommunication networks that enable cybercrime and spying. The agency is investigating how vulnerabilities in the protocol signaling system number 7, SS7 in diameter, which jointly enable phone calls and text messages movements across network, could allow breaches, particularly by revealing consumer location and malicious hackers and spies. The FCC has told carriers to explain how they're preventing such activity over these protocols. It's demanding providers turn over specific examples of any of these types of breaches. The problem's been well known for quite some time, according to Senator Ron Wyden of the state of Oregon. He's been urging the Biden administration to fix the flaw in the letter, saying that it provides grave threats. SS7 and diameter are not outfitted with technology needed to properly encrypt the traffic they handle. The agency and telecom experts say Americans are particularly exposed to hacks while roaming networks, giving the sensitivity of geolocation information. It's critically important for the commission to know whether providers are taking the necessary precautions to protect subscribers. So there's that, and the FCC's taking that on. Right now, we'll be monitoring this and keeping you appraised as to what's going on. Russia actually charged suspects behind the theft of 160,000 credit cards. Let me repeat that so you understand that I'm not joking. Russia's Prosecutor's General's Office has announced the indictment of 6 suspected hacking group members for using malware to steal credit card and payment information from foreign online stores. If you need me to repeat that line again, I can. But yeah, in the rare case of tackling cybercrime, the Russian authorities announced an indictment of 6 men named, they've all got really impressive Russian names, for card skimming. According to the investigation, the 6 suspects started the malicious activity nearly 7 years ago, managed to steal 160,000 payment cards. They were using a special malicious code that copied the necessary details of the bank cards and placed them on their remote servers. The 6 men are accused of committing crimes related to Part 2 of Article 187 and Part 3 of Article 273 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation. They've been sent to the Soviet District Court of Ryazan, which will decide their penalty. So hell has frozen over somewhere in Russia. It has. So there's that. Or these guys did pay protection. Either way, one of those two. That's it for our show this morning. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up this really busy week for all of y'all. Again, if you have, please make sure to subscribe. Please follow us. If you've got any stories you want us to cover, do in-depth looks at, please, you can always go to our website, cyberhubpodcast.com. Go check out our Substack. Without further ado, have a great rest of your day, y'all, and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.